Hello, everybody, and welcome to Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. Happy Thursday. We're almost at the end of the week. So, everyone, hopefully you're plowing through this week, having a good week. We were just talking about before we jumped on here that the weather is not exactly great today where I am in Connecticut, but hopefully it gets nicer this weekend and everyone can kind of enjoy their weekend. I know I have my sister's college graduation this weekend. So, she's definitely looking forward to that, but hopefully it's not too uncomfortably hot for that either. That would not be too fun. But looking forward to bringing you all another episode. Definitely a lot to talk about today. Really looking forward to introducing my guest that I have with me on this episode. You may know him for a lot of different reasons. Providence College, voice of Gillette Stadium, WEEI, Patriots.com, you name it. He does it all, really. John Rooke, how are you doing today?
Great, Gabby. Thanks for having me. How are you? Other than
Good.
being cold where you are, it's cold where I am too. I'm like, I just checked the calendar, and it's supposed to be like 90 something here this week.
Yeah, I think this weekend is supposed to be super hot. I saw it around 95 on Saturday.
I want to go to the beach.
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
know you, but I kind of want to go to the beach. I'm like, we got to get all this beach time in before football season starts, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that weather is definitely looking like it's hopefully coming or here. Hopefully there will be some good beach days next week coming up. So
I'm
fingers
hoping.
crossed for that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely I'm definitely ready for beach and tan season.
totally. Although the tan part, I just burned now, so I'm kind of like, I was one of those. I was one of those back in the day. Probably when I was your age, that I used to put, and I'm sure that there'd be some older people like me that would remember this. I used to put baby oil and iodine together
Really?
because
Really?
it would definitely bronze you. I mean, it would, of course. We discovered that not only would it bronze you, it would slowly bake you like a piece of chicken. So
Wow.
probably not really good for you based on what we know nowadays about skin cancers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was me. I was a sun god. I used to spend all waking hours of my days on the roof of the fraternity house baking to get golden bronze and impress nobody but myself.
That sounds kind of fun though, to be honest.
It was, well, listen, when you're old enough to be able to handle that, yeah, it was fun. But now that it's just forget it. Let's move on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely am a big summer person as well, and for some reason I feel like this past winter kind of dragged by too, so I've just been ready for the warm weather.
Yeah, I think so too. I've just been frustrated with it because it was such a cold and wet and rainy, wintertime around here that I always long for the warm weather as soon as we can get it. In fact, it gets to the point usually when basketball season's over and I've still got, school, going on since, I'm a college professor as well, that I crave the winter times. I mean, I crave the summertime. So my girlfriend and I, we usually try to get away during her school vacation week and get off out into a little time in Key West, just to
Oh, that's
just
nice.
just to escape the cold, almost more than anything else, and just do nothing but for a couple of days just sit in the heat and
Yeah.
sweat.
See, that sounds super nice, but then it's always hard flying back. I feel like when it's winter and it's cold, being welcomed back into that New England weather.
It is so hard coming home. It's hard. It's
It
hard.
is.
But
That
hey, I've gotten used to it over the years, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that sounds super nice though that you're able to do that trip.
Love it, love it. I mean, it's a vastly underrated place. Very eclectic, as I'm sure you probably were. Have you ever been there before? Ever
I
been
have
out to
not.
Key West? Yeah,
No,
this it's got all kinds of people. I mean, there's a lot of people older than me that like to hang out as well. But I would say it's mostly an older crowd, and then the younger crowd is let's just say all different walks of life. All different walks of
Good
life.
way of
But you know
putting
what? Nobody bothers any of it. It's great. I mean, it's fantastic. Best part about it is the happy hour. Happy
That's
hours all
the
over the
exciting
place. I mean,
part.
yeah. I mean, it's not worth going into a place unless they got to, unless they're doing a happy hour. If they're doing a happy hour, then we're all set. I can hang for a while.
Exactly. Then everyone's happy.
Happy hours and live music. There's a ton of it down there. So that's
Really?
what we
Yeah,
like.
that sounds like something my parents would like.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. That was a nice little backhanded slap. Appreciate you.
I mean, no, I'm a big live music fan as well, though. So I'm with
Yep,
you
me
on that.
too. Yeah,
Depends on
me
the type
too.
of music,
But the one problem that I have is that I think I'm at an age now where I'm trying to decide, okay, so when do I enjoy the music and when do I stop enjoying the music and want them to turn down the sound because it's too loud?
I,
So I don't think I've gotten to that age yet.
that's good.
I
That's
think
good
I'm
though.
close though. I'm close
You're
because
hitting that point.
well, where I was located, this year we the room that we had in the place where we were staying was a couple of doors down from an outdoors bar that overlooks Duval Street, which is the big main street in Key West, and you can hear the singer at the bar through all the walls. And so I actually asked him. I said, hey, is there any way that you can put us, away from where the bar is located? And they kind of laughed. And I said, hey, it's nothing to do with me being older. But I said, when we come home, when we're drunk, we like to collapse and go to sleep.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yeah.
when you're drunk, the music shouldn't keep you awake anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you once you're out, you're out. So it doesn't really matter.
Right. Yeah. Well, in theory, right. I probably said too much on that subject already anyway. So
no, it's okay. Yeah, we definitely all have those times and we enjoy those times. So I'm with you on that.
Oh,
definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you joining me on the show today. Really excited to chat with you. I am definitely a little bit curious kind of how you even got into the industry and how that all started for you.
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, I got into the industry, I think, largely because I was a failed athlete, like a lot of broadcasters do. I played basketball in high school and tore up my knee, and it was it was really sad, to be 16 years old and think that your life ahead of you was over. And so the coach, I think, took pity on me, and he didn't happen to have an athletic trainer that season. And so it was kind of like, hey, why don't you learn how to, be a trainer, and, you can come, tape ankles and knees and wrists and rehab yourself and all that kind of stuff. And you can still hang around your friends. And I'm like, sure, I'll do that. So I went to a couple of clinics, learned how to, basically take care of some basic athletic training needs. And a friend of mine, who was a year older than me in high school, this is when I was a junior in high school. He thought it was pretty cool that I was doing this to stay on the team. So he worked for the school newspaper and he did a story on me. And it was really cool, the whole process. I went to the journalism office and I sat down across the table from him, and he had this little tape recorder and he was recording my interview and he's taking notes. I mean, he was being a due diligent journalist, right? A week later, I was like big man on campus. It was unbelievable. Oh, hey, there's John Rooke. Oh, he's giving everything for, good old Pascal High, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I'm like, that was fun and all because, girls would say hello to me that didn't even know who I was. So that was pretty cool. But the thing that I loved most about it was the process of putting it together and the final product. So I inquired and I, got a slot on the school newspaper because I thought it was neat. 6 months after that, I was the co-editor of the paper. 6 months after that, I won a scholarship in journalism to the University of Texas at Austin.
Wow.
So it was clearly a case of, a big door closing for me. A 45 now, almost 50-year career has opened itself up to me. And it all happened because I ripped up my knee. So, I mean, that's really how I got started. That's a true story. And, I've got the scar on my knee still to prove it. But, that's one of the things that I sell, my college students. I tell my own two boys this, and my youngest son is also in the industry like I am. And, I tell him, I said, you should never be afraid to fail. And you should never feel sorry for yourself if you get dismissed or fired or let go. Or it's 9.5 times out of 10, it's not your fault. What it is just you're a victim of circumstances, really being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And your job is now to maneuver yourself into a better position for you. And it took me a while to figure that out before I finally figured that out. And so I've never looked at, getting fired or getting let go or moving on from other things as a negative. I've always looked at it as, okay, what's the next opportunity that's going to open itself up to me? And that's really the thing that I've stuck with most through the years. And it's kept me going for a really long time. I've been in this business for almost 50 years now. I first started in this business as a newspaper boy, throwing a newspaper route. And that's been 50 years ago this summer. So, that's how I started. And then my first paid job, other than, getting paid to, throw the newspaper route, was answering phones in the sports department of the local newspaper where I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram newspaper. And I started doing that when I was a junior in high school. So for my last 2 years of high school, I'm answering the phones in the sports department. I'm listening to unbelievable stories. I learned a lot of words that I didn't know at the time either, but it was an invaluable education, and it really gave me a desire to kind of continue to do what I did. And I ended up getting a scholarship to go to school, and then and the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, that's so cool. I feel like the mindset is a huge thing too. And just like you said, looking at everything as an opportunity rather than getting discouraged if something happens. Because like you said, getting laid off from a job or something like that is a lot of times out of your control. It's just unfortunate circumstances.
Absolutely. You can't, you can't, there's so much that's out there that you can't control. In fact, that's what a lot of people really don't realize about the business, is that there's so much that you cannot control. That a lot of people are like, well, then why the hell do you get into the business? Don't you want to be able to control your fate? Honestly, no. That's part of the fun of it. I have never had a boring day in my life in my job. I like to also tell people that I don't think I've ever really worked a day in my life. Now, have I worked before? Yeah. Look, I've driven a forklift. I've worked on an assembly line. I had a newspaper route when I was, 13. I mean, I've done some real, blue collar things in my life. Right. But I've never felt like I work. I enjoy doing these things. I still enjoy doing the things that I do, which is why I do them. And so this is why I tell, people who want to get into the business, people your age and even younger, look, it's great if you have a passion, follow it, but be smart about it and be flexible and don't take no for an answer. And when you do, fall down, learn to pick yourself back up and find the next door that opens, a pathway for you. And if you're able to do that, then you're going to grow old like I will someday. I mean, that's really, there's no other way to put it. I mean, look at this, geez, cotton top over here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm scared for those days, but definitely scared for those days.
You got a long time.
But yeah, I definitely like that advice though. I feel like it's the type of industry where there's no clear-cut path. Everybody's path is different, and being able to take opportunities and say yes to everything, like you said, is just going to help grow you and grow your skills and be able to just be open-minded in terms of the type of path that you're taking.
Totally. You have to be. And so that's one of the reasons why, in the curriculum that I teach, we teach versatility, because right now you can't really pigeonhole yourself into say, well, I'm going to be X, or I'm going to be Y, or I'm going to be Z, or I'm going to be this, or no, stop right there, because you are setting yourself up for abject failure. You have to keep your mind open, and you have to prepare yourself to be ready to do almost anything. If somebody asked me to, like, hey, can you do this? I'm going to say, sure, I can do that, before I figure out what the hell is it I'm supposed to do again? I mean, I always say yes before I don't know if I can do that. Right? I don't ever plant a seed of doubt. I say yes, and then I'll figure it out. Okay. And so I think that's a huge key, because when you put a little bit of a fire underneath you, a little pressure to learn how to do something, man, that's the best education I think anybody can get, is that sense of urgency. So, that's a large key to success, is that drive and that determination, and that's what I look for when I hire, people, is I look for drive, determination, want to be there, and enjoyment of the industry, that kind of thing. Because if I get somebody that's kind of like, well, I don't know, or, if I ask a question, where do you want to be in 5 years? Or what do you think you'll be in 5 years? Well, I don't know. And wrong answer. Bye. Good luck to you.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's such a competitive industry too. So you have to really, really want it and really want to be there to be in this type of industry.
You know that. You know that, right? You worked at ESPN, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Tough.
I worked at ESPN for 11 years. I stopped working there in 12 years. I worked from 1999 to 2011 at ESPN Radio. And, I was a contract hire there the whole time, which is amazing that I lasted that long without Mickey getting his hooks in me. But I was able to do that largely because of the two announcing jobs that I had, one of which was the Patriots. The other one is the Friars. And they knew that, if they said you got to choose between one or the other, I would have said, bye, Mickey. I wasn't going to give that up because those were lifelong jobs. So the bosses that I had at the time, good guys, I'm still in contact with everyone. I left on great terms with everybody at the aforementioned worldwide leader. But I got tired of commuting mostly because I was commuting from, Rhode Island and Massachusetts to Bristol, Connecticut every day.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
that's a long commute. Jeez.
That sucked. That was not good.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of miles in my car, but it was still worth it. And if I was in the same situation, I'd do it all over again. I would totally because of the opportunity. And I got some great opportunity. I got a chance to be, on the air, 4 or 5 days a week in a national radio network. And then even when I slowed down doing that, I was still doing, play-by-play for ESPNU. When the U launched, I was one of their first play-by-play announcers. And I did most of when the Big East contract was still on ESPN, I was doing all of the ESPNU and the ESPN regional, games that they were televising. And it was a blast because being located where I was, situated at the time, I lived in East Providence. I could get to Boston, I could get to Connecticut, I could get to New York, and so they always called me. I was getting a ton of work, and I'm just like, dang, who wants to give this up, right? So that's kind of how it rolled for a while until, as we all know, the college world imploded about a decade and a half ago, and a little more than that now, and things have changed. I wouldn't say they've changed for the worse. They just changed. Things change. Things are changing again with, NIL and all this other stuff that's going on now. It's going to be different. We have to get used to it. I told myself, Gabby, years ago that when I stopped wanting to change, that's when I need to retire. And I've always lived with that. I've always lived. When I am not ready to change anymore, it's time to go. See ya. I'm headed to Florida. I'm headed to Key West. I'm going to go join. I'm going to go down to Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville and hang my hat and find a parrot to put on my shoulder and drink margaritas. That's what I'll do. But I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that does not sound like too bad of a retirement life right there either.
I try to kick the tires on that once or twice every year just to remind myself this is what I'm working for. This is truly what I'm working for, right? I mean, I never thought of myself as a parrot head, but I guess I kind of am. I kind of like that lifestyle. I really like the Caribbean vibe, and I do spend some time in the Caribbean, but Key West is hey, it's the American Caribbean really. And if you've never been down there, so sound like I could probably go to work for the Chamber of Commerce right now based on the way that I'm selling it. But it's just a vibe down there that I really enjoy. I mean, it's totally laid back, and you come as you are. I don't care who you are. That's the beauty of it. You can be purple, green, black, white, gay, lesbian, old, young. I mean, you can be anything. Nobody cares.
That's
awesome. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Great. That's great. Yeah. It just doesn't matter who you are. It's just that's the kind of vibe it is there.
Yeah. It's a wonderful melting pot. And that's what it is. It's a melting pot. And then in every place, and you go places, and you end up migrating to people that are your own age, and people that have your same likes and dislikes. Like I like to go listen to a little I'll go listen to a little honky tonk, and then every once in a while I'll listen to a little rock, and then I'll go maybe a little more than just a little rock, and then I'll listen to some jazz every once in a while, and then and then it just depends on the mood, right?
Yeah, it just depends on what you're feeling at that specific time. Yeah. I'll have to go down there at some point though and check it out.
It's worth it.
You sold me on it pretty hard here, so definitely adding it to the list now.
Yeah, but see, the first thing you'll do though is you'll figure out, you'll go down there and you'll see all these, gray-haired people like me, and you're like, what the hell am I doing down here with all these? Where do all these old people come from? And then you kind of realize, hey, these old people are cool, and so you just hang and party with them, and it's a blast. It really is. It's a blast.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's definitely an interesting vibe for sure. That's funny. I'm definitely going. I'm definitely checking it out now.
Yeah,
And
you got to.
I'll report back to you on
Yeah,
what
yeah,
my
yeah.
thoughts are after the
For
fact.
sure, for sure. We'll start our own. We'll start our own Northeast, Key West fan club or something.
Exactly. Yeah. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I do have to tell you, I am from Connecticut, so I am a huge UConn fan. Grew up about 15 minutes from the UConn campus.
Well, then we
So
can't. We obviously can't have this conversation anymore.
So my dad and my grandfather always had season tickets to UConn basketball and football games. So that was kind of my childhood growing up was the UConn background.
Hey, listen, I totally understand it. It's a great background to be a part of.
Yeah.
I was really happy, secretly. Don't tell anybody. I was happy that UConn got back to the Big East because I always thought as a founding member they deserved to be there anyway. If football unfortunately got in the way, and football is kind of still in the way, but
Yeah.
no, I get it because that's what state universities have to do to really drive income. Even though it's cost UConn a pretty penny, and they're running this huge deficit, but UConn is the one one school in this country that really, has football at a major level, but it's still a basketball school. And so for that reason, I'm glad that they've sort of, thrown a lifeline to the basketball program, and hopefully they can find something to do with the football program at some point. But I'm glad that UConn basketball is back. Basketball in the Big East is better when UConn is good and everybody hates them.
I mean, it's not like people like Providence either, but
nobody likes Providence. Providence is an afterthought. Providence is kind of like, the redheaded stepchild. Who are you? Get the hell out of here. That's what Providence is. Providence is like a thorn in the side of, Villanova and Seton Hall, and Seton Hall's kind of that way too. I'd say UConn, Villanova, Georgetown, schools like that. It's like Providence. Okay, but at least Providence has character and history because Providence, for a smaller school. I mean, it's one of the smallest Division I schools in the country. It's only got 4,000 undergraduate students, but it's got a pretty good basketball pedigree. I mean, Lenny Wilkins, John Thompson, Dave Gavitt, Joe Mulaney. I mean, Hall of Fame caliber guys. I mean, Lenny Wilkins is in the Basketball Hall of Fame twice as a player and a coach. So, and he's really the first great player that came along. And then you've had so many others come along. And so it's really cool to see, Providence have a resurgence. And it's cool to see UConn now bouncing back, and trying to pick up the mantle that, Jim Calhoun left behind. So I think it's neat. It's a good time, for basketball in the Northeast anyway.
Yeah, Big East basketball is just really special, and I feel like that's just where UConn belongs. And it's so much better for the program that they're back there now, and with terms of the competitiveness and the teams that they're playing, It's just a lot better for them to be back there. So I know me and my family as UConn fans were really, really happy when that move was made back to the Big East because it's just so much better for UConn basketball. And like you said, I feel like better for the whole conference with UConn being there and with the history of the Jim Calhoun days and just the success that UConn did have, especially when I was younger, then being able to be back in that mix with all those teams again.
Right. Totally agree. It's much better. It's much better sport now. And, there's more emphasis and interest in it. And frankly, the one, thing that I've always has already kind of marveled me is that, as far as, sports fans in Boston and New England are concerned, why there isn't more interest in the college game, college basketball, north of, say, Woonsocket, Rhode Island. I mean, nobody in Boston gives a crap. And I know there's a huge professional influence, as we all know. You know it, I know it, we all know it. But I don't understand why, with the history of college basketball in the region, why college basketball isn't more important in the Boston area. I mean, even Boston College has had tremendous background and history, and you've had that even with some of the smaller. I mean, look at Jim Calhoun; he came from Northeastern, for goodness sakes, right? That's where he was before he even went to UConn. So I mean, there's great history here, and even in northern New England. I mean, UVM, Vermont has a great program.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody cares there, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a ton of, stuff that you can really hang your hat on around here. And it's kind of cool to, when it's not football season, to hang your hat on something else every once in a while. I mean, I realize the NFL is still a 365-day-a-year sport, mostly for a lot of people around here. And I get that. I get it every day. But, every once in a while, I mean, you can't do chocolate ice cream every day because pretty soon you get sick of it and you crave vanilla or you crave swirl or you know what I crave? I crave coffee ice cream. I love coffee.
I don't like coffee ice cream.
I love it. All right. Well, sorry, we can't be friends. But I'm just, but the idea here is you got to change it up, right? Every once in a while, you got to throw yourself a curveball. And so that's kind of how I look at college basketball. Is it fills the sports bill, after football season's over. And then people get into the Celtics and get into the Bruins. And hey, it's a good time right now to be a Celtic fan. I think people know, but the games are different. The games are different. I don't even pay attention to the NBA until after Christmas. Because
it's such a long season. So
it is. It's way too long. And for years, the NBA has been just a game of iso ball. It's kind of like, okay, you go one-on-one, and then I'll throw it to you, and then you go one-on-one. And there's, and that's why the Celtics season this year has actually been really fun to watch, since January, because they're actually playing as a team, which is really kind of cool to see, right?
Yeah, it's really fun watching them right now. But I'm with you. I've always liked college basketball more than the NBA, and there's really nothing else like March Madness. I feel like that time of the year is just so fun with everybody doing their brackets and just how many games there are that could go in either direction, and watching all those upsets. It's just such a fun time. I feel like you don't really get that as much, that feel as much during the NBA playoffs, because there's just so many more games, and it's with March Madness, it's how it's, the one game do or die type of situation for teams. It's just a lot different of a vibe.
March Madness is the single greatest sporting event on the calendar in our country, bar none. And the reason is because it goes on for a month, number one, and number two, it involves, at least initially, on the men's side, 68 different communities around the country. And then you add 68 more women's, because some of them don't double up. You're talking literally over, 100 to 100 and, maybe 120 cities around the country that are involved in the same event. Who can say that? Nobody, no sport can possibly even touch that. I mean, I would argue that the Super Bowl is right there, clearly. And then to a lesser extent, the World Series and NBA Finals and NHL Stanley Cup. If you want real emotion and angst and competitive fire, and I mean, it's the NCAA tournament and then maybe the Super Bowl. And then after that, I'd say probably Stanley Cup hockey.
Stanley Cup hockey is really intense. There's not really much like
the Stanley Cup. I agree with that.
There in terms of the intensity that comes with those games.
And that's part of the reason why I stay up on the local teams, because I want them to be in that intensity so I can experience that intensity. Because we as fans, whether we're covering it or whether we're just trying to watch it and enjoy it at night, we want to be a part of that. And that's kind of how I got into doing what I do, because I missed the intensity, as an athlete. So how do I sink my teeth into something else? Found it.
Yeah. And I mean, especially now that the Bruins are out, I mean, it's still fun watching those hockey games, but we as Bruins fans don't feel that same intensity because our team's not there anymore. With March Madness, there's always games where there's that intensity of seeing those 15 seeds upsetting 2 seeds, and those teams that are the Cinderella teams that make those surprise runs. Everybody likes watching something like that.
That's the big difference. And someone said, well, I don't understand it. Well, here's the difference. Your team can get knocked out of the NCAA tournament, but you're still going to like, oh my God, when you see the next upset happen. You don't do that when your team leaves the NHL or the NBA playoffs. You're kind of like, well, it's golf season, we'll take off next year, and it's literally over. You stay involved with the NCAA basketball tournament because of the whole David versus Goliath thing. I mean, we did that this year with St. Peter's, right?
Yeah, they were awesome. Everybody was pulling for them.
Of course you were. We all were. Everybody was.
That was such a cool story.
I know. That's what brings everybody together. So that's what makes March Madness, to me, the single best event on the calendar, because everybody can be involved, even if your team gets knocked out.
Yeah, like UConn was a first round exit this year. They lost and they lost in the first round of the tournament. But then, like you said, with teams like St. Peter's, that there were other teams that I was still rooting for after UConn got eliminated. So yeah, that was unfortunate, but it wasn't like the end of the world to me.
Yep,
There were
true.
other teams I could watch and be invested in for the rest of that tournament.
All true. 100%. All true.
My dad always saw that as kind of a national holiday. He always would take that Thursday off from work and just watch all the games. He does it every year still to this day.
Well, don't we all?
The first day of it. He would never let me stay home from school though.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, the rare occasion, last 10 years or so, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to go to a lot of tournaments, so I've been working. But, in the few times that we haven't had it, it's kind of like, I'll sit here in the office or I'll be at home or whatever, and I got it all up on my computer and I'm watching it all day long.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too now. I'll have as many screens as I can with different games going. But when I was younger, I always tried to pull well, Dad, if you can stay home, why can't I? And it was always no. So I would always strike out on that one, unfortunately. But
yeah. Yeah, you're going to strike out on that one.
But yeah, it's such a fun time. It's just really cool to be a part of, and that's why college basketball is super fun. And I feel like people who are like, no, the NBA is better, I don't really agree with that, but teach their own, I guess. But it's just in this season, I feel like because the games are they kind of matter more, especially at the beginning of the season in college basketball, is because it's a much shorter season. Whereas with the NBA, the beginning of the season, you might not be playing well. Celtics are an example of that. Then they started to play better later on, and you can make up for that more.
I don't know how anybody in the right mind can say that the NBA is better than the college game. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not even close. Because the NBA pros make the same damn mistakes as the college kids, and yet they're paid to not make mistakes.
It's so true. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's even close. In the college game, you get more of the rah-rah, and you get more of the emotion. And I mean, I realize NIL is changing everything, but they're not playing for $1 million salaries. Okay. Yeah. So it's different. And plus, you usually have a tie. You mentioned UConn. You usually have a tie to the school that you went to school at, and it's a way for you to stay attached to people that you went to school with, that organization, fans, family, whatever. I mean, that's a great way for people to have a lot in common if they wouldn't have anything else in common. So to me, that's why college athletics, it is really the tie that binds more so than the professional game. And I'm not trying to put down college, professional sports. I mean, clearly I've worked in the, NFL. I've covered the NFL for over 40 years. I've worked for the Patriots for now 31. So it's just, it's a different vibe. It's a different sport. It's a different way of being. And, I learned to appreciate the good of both.
Yeah, no, I like that. I definitely appreciate both as well, but there's nothing like college basketball, so I'm glad we're on the same page with that.
Oh yeah.
That's me and my dad and my grandfather's bloodline right there as UConn. So so that's a really special for us. But yeah, speaking of the Patriots though, I mean, how did you feel about their draft this year? Because there were definitely areas that they did not address that they could have addressed in this draft. And it's usually typical for the Patriots to not be the best at drafting players. But I was definitely disappointed that they didn't draft a single linebacker this year, for one. That was a huge thing that I was looking at and saying, why was there not a single linebacker drafted? And there's a couple other holes too. I mean, we don't really know for sure who's going to replace JC Jackson, like who the actual replacement is going to be. I mean, obviously the offense, they added some pieces, but what were your overall thoughts on their draft?
I mean, I was a little surprised, but then obviously I guess I'm not really surprised, only upon further reflection. The Patriots obviously know better than we do. Okay, let's give them some credit. Yeah. It's easy for us to sit here and be, second guessers because, it's not our jobs and our careers and all that stuff on the line. But they got an awful lot of linebackers the last couple of years. I mean, Cam McGrone is a great example of that. And so they want to give him an opportunity to win the job. And they obviously feel he can, and he can play a lot, which is part of the reason why they didn't go out and draft anybody, because they felt like, well, we'll go out and draft other needs because we feel like that need is already solved. And that's regardless of what you think or I think or anybody else that, opines on the Patriots. Okay, it doesn't matter. And obviously, if it doesn't work out, then okay, then we can second guess. But I think you have to be willing to give it a chance. So I mean, at first glance, I was a little bit surprised, and then upon further reflection, well, obviously, clearly, I could see why they didn't do it. And of course, the coaches, after the coaches been interviewed earlier this week, in fact, that's what their way of thinking was. So, while I was surprised, I wasn't necessarily disappointed, because I'm really pleased with the speed that they added. And I think that's the one thing that we have. And I understand that there are a lot of people that still have their, underpants twisted over, taking guys that were rated much lower by the scouts and, the draft nicks and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, their first pick, even, they could have taken him in the 3rd or 4th round.
Well, they say that, but don't believe that. Okay. It's easy, again, Gabby, for you and I and for, Mike Felger and for Greg Bedard and for, any of these guys that, think they know, to say they know when they don't. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. This is all a crapshoot. Okay. We're rolling dice. That's all we're doing. And we're offering opinion. Nobody knows unless you're actually in that room with them and you're a part of that staff. So let's get that out of the way first. So that's why I want Patriots fans to get upset over, they didn't take a linebacker, or, they took a guy that was going to be available in the 3rd round. Oh, shut up. Just shut up. You don't know. All you've done is you've parroted what the talking heads and local media are saying. You don't know. You're just saying what those numbskulls say. So just stop. Just stop. Nobody knows. The only true grade that you can give a draft is 3 years after they've been drafted. You want to give me a grade on 2022, then fantastic. Let's do it in 2025. That's really it. That's it. Yeah. And I don't look at it beyond that. And I saved myself an awful lot of angst. I look at the draft now as, okay, do I get nervous? I used to. Why? Because the process has to play itself out. Now, you're talking about a coach. Yeah, he's getting up there in age. We're a little surprised. Some of us are still a little surprised that he's still coaching. But then again, I think he is driven to surpass Don Shula.
Yeah,
I think he wants to stay in this game and beat out Don Shula as the all-time winningest coach. And part of that is the competitor in him, especially before Coach Shula passed away, when he called him Belichick.
Yeah.
Okay? I think that stuck in his craw. And I think basically he's, in his own way, he's flipping Don Shula off from the grave. That's what he's doing. Yeah. Okay, fine. Guess what? You won't be the winningest coach for very long. And look, the man's had a certain amount of success in his 21 years in New England, okay? I think he still gets the benefit of the doubt. Has he hit on every draft pick? Hell no. Can he draft a wide receiver? Hell no.
That's another.
No. I hope we finally see one, Kid from Baylor looks pretty fast, but boy, is he skinny. God, he's skinny, and he's got small hands. And you don't normally see that from wide receivers. They usually got these big old fingers, and but this guy, he's different. We'll see. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, okay? But until I can see him play, till we can actually see him get hit, till we can actually see him blow by a defensive back or get tackled in the open field or whatever, we don't know. And I say that all the time to anybody who wants, to talk about it. So, look, we can surmise that the draft, well, maybe they could have gotten these guys later. Maybe. But as I think, I read a piece that Mark Daniels from the Providence Journal did not too long ago that I thought pretty much hit the nail on the head. And I'll paraphrase, but it basically was, look, when you like a guy, you like a guy. It really shouldn't matter what the Mel Kipers of the world say. By the way, Mel's been a friend of mine for 30 years, okay? But it doesn't matter what they say. They're in the business to rate players, okay? That's his business. He doesn't see the actual playing context of it. And he's not sure where a player is going to fit more so than what the player can do, if that makes any sense, okay? So in that context, the Patriots like a guy like Cole Strong, okay? They like him. And they probably glanced at, he might be there, he might not be there. It looks like we might be able to get him later. But then when you get down to that part of the draft and, they talk, everybody talks. Everybody knows, and you hear rumors, and you're friends with GMs and scouts and everything. And then you get wind of, oh, you know what? So-and-so is picking 2 spots or picking, up after us. And they also like Strong, by the way. And then they make a move to jump ahead of you. And you get wind of that. Okay. What are you going to do? You're going to make a move so you can get the guy that you've wanted all along. Okay. Whether he was going to be, he's not. Why do you think they took him at 29? Why do you think they took him? Because he wasn't going to be there if they didn't take him. That's why they took him. I don't understand how that bit of common sense doesn't get through to people.
Yeah.
He was going to be gone. You can't say, oh, he'd have been there 2 rounds later. No, you can't. You can't say that. First of all, you don't know. Second of all, they wouldn't have taken him if he was going to be there because they're not stupid. I'm going to give a team and an organization that's won 6 world championships the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until they retire and they're no longer a part of the game. So that's kind of how I feel about the draft. Everybody that says, the Patriots drafted F, D, C-. I'm listening to, these, radio talking heads, and all these guys are good friends of mine. They're doing it just to tweak your nose. It's kind of like taking a puppy dog and rubbing his face in the doo-doo, right? Nope, I'm not buying that. Not buying it at all. I think I'll wait to see, how they play and how they hit and how they fit into the scheme and how they fit into the routine. And is it the right fit for what the Patriots want to do on offense or defense? That's why they didn't draft any linebackers, because they feel like they've already got the guys in place to do the job that they feel they need them to do. It's why they gave up on Cole Winovich. All this stuff. It's all part of it. They gave him 2 years to figure it out. And it's just like, you know what? Let's see if we have a better fit. So let's put him in a spot where he can be a better fit for somebody else. They don't go into anything vindictively. They don't do anything to try to, ruin somebody. They want to see everybody have success. You don't play this game for very long, and so you don't have an end for anybody. So you got to do, that's when Bill says, we're going to do what's in the best interest of the football team. And everybody rolls their eyes. Oh, well, I haven't heard that before, Bill. Thanks a lot. But he's being honest. Nobody stops to think that. He's being honest. And if you don't give him the benefit of the doubt, well, then who the hell are you? Have you won 6 world championships in the last 18 years? No, I don't think so. Sit down, shut up, and pay attention. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to know how anybody's going to pan out, regardless of what team you are and who you're drafting anyway, because these kids are coming, they're right out of college, and you could see potential in a lot of them, which is why they get drafted in the first place, and you see their strengths and their weaknesses from when they were in college, but it's such a different game at the professional level too. So it's hard to even know how anybody from any team is going to pan out. I mean, you could be the number 1 overall pick and it might not pan out. You know what I mean? It's just hard to know for sure who's going to pan out where in any situation.
It's very true. So that's why I try to stay open-ended with it. And all these so-called experts and analysts are saying, oh, the Patriots really screwed up there because this guy would have been available in the second round. Mule muffins. That's all that is. Yeah. Total BS. Total BS. Yeah. They don't know. Because, again, you got to consider fit for the team. And you have to understand, if you're in that war room and you're making a decision and the guy you like and the guy that you've identified as being a really good fit for what you want to do on offense or defense, okay, somebody else likes him too. Invariably, that's going to be the case. It's like, the whole Sean McVay video when, he reacted and then they laughed and it looked like they were laughing derisively at the Patriots for selecting Strong when they did, right? And we all got a big kick out of that, right? I mean, I remember I tweeted out after it happened, I'm like, oh, that's not good. And it wasn't, because clearly it was misunderstood on both sides. But at the very sight of it, what's the first thing we think of? It's because we always think negatively. We're trained to react negatively. Nobody says, oh, bravo, they got Cole Strong. Says, what the hell are they doing?
We're like, who is this kid and what are they doing?
Or something like that. See, so we're already trained to think negatively. And Sean McVay reacted like that, and it got out on social media, and it got viral to the point where he had to pick up the phone and call both Bill and Cole and say, dudes, guys, that looked horrible. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he was backpedaling. Who knows? But, I can understand why that would get out and be bad and why he would feel the need to do that because, they didn't have him rated as highly as the Patriots did. But I'm sure there are some players the Rams picked that the Patriots didn't have rated highly. You just didn't see Bill Belichick go off and like, oh my God, they took that guy where? You didn't see him.
Yes, what you mean. Yeah.
So McVay was he was a little immature in that regard.
Yeah, that's definitely not a good way to handle that situation at all.
No.
Yeah, because not everybody's team needs are the same either. What the Patriots need is not going to be the same as what the Rams need, or the Falcons or whoever it may be. Every team's needs are different too. So the players that the Patriots are looking at might not be the same types of players that Sean McVay is looking at because his team might have different holes that they need to fill.
You are correct. That's 100%.
So whatever that may be in terms of how Bill feels like that person fits in, Sean McVay might be like, why would he take somebody like that? But maybe it's because for his team, it might not be a need for them at the time anyway. So it depends on the team and who's being drafted.
Yeah.
Totally. I was definitely a little bit surprised that they drafted a quarterback. I definitely not see that coming, I would say, before the draft. A lot of people, of course, overreacted about that though too and said, why are we already drafting Mac Jones as replacement? But he's not that I'm not looking at that as drafting Mac Jones as replacement at all. Because they know that Mac Jones is the guy.
Yeah, I don't think they drafted Mac Jones replacement. I think what they did is they drafted another quarterback that, look, they weren't sold on Jarrett Stidham. And I think that, the hip injury that Stidham had, it probably hurt him here more than anything else. He probably needed a fresh start. I think what they looked at is that, look, we need somebody young that's going to come in and replace Brian Hoyer more than anything else. And look, this guy's got a lot of upside. He's got a strong arm, and let's let him wing it and see what happens. And guess what? If he challenges Mac, great. It's either there's no negative. There's no negative. The upside of that is he challenges Mac and he improves and he forces Mac to improve. Or he's good enough to beat Mac out at some point. Nobody expects that, but who the hell knows? I mean, look at what Tom Brady did.
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody expected that. And then look what happened there, Yeah.
So I wasn't really surprised. I thought that they might draft a quarterback somewhere. The guy that they drafted is the one that, was a little bit surprised. I mean, I saw, Zappy play. It was the Conference USA Championship game against Texas San Antonio, against UTSA. And UTSA won the game, but Zappy was relentless in that game. I mean, he was relentless. I'm like, oh my God, they can't stop this guy. And so when I heard that the Patriots had drafted him, because I wasn't watching the draft live when they picked him, I'm just like, holy crap, I know that guy. He's pretty good. So, hey, we'll find out. We'll find out.
I wasn't really sure why people were mad about that because I'm like, I don't really see a downside to this situation. It's more when you have another quarterback option, you can see how he does. And then if anything, it gives you another option, another solid quarterback option. Or like you said, if he ends up playing better than Mac, then who's going to be upset about that? Because then you have a better quarterback in that spot anyway, as it is. Yeah. So I didn't really understand why people were upset about that move. Granted, if they use their first pick on a quarterback, I would understand, but that's it's definitely not we're looking to replace Mac Jones right now. That was definitely not the mindset of getting this kid. I just think, yeah, why not give him a shot, see what he has, and he could be a solid backup, even more so than Hoyer or Stidham if he ends up being really that number 2 quarterback for the team. We just don't know. And I feel like that's more what it was to me, more so having quarterback depth options than being like, yeah, we don't trust Mac Jones, so we're going to try to replace him now.
Yeah, I think I'd go along with that. Sure, I would agree.
Mac, and Mac, I mean, I definitely think I'm excited for his development and just to see how he progresses. And I think people were a little hard on him this past season because they're so used to, Tom Brady and all of this dominance at quarterback. But the kid was a rookie. He was going to make rookie mistakes, and I think people were kind of forgetting that in certain situations. But I think now that he has a year under his belt in the Patriots system, I am excited to see his progression and how he kind of continues to develop on this team. Because I like the kid. I think I think he could be really good for this team. I just think now that he has that exposure and he has a year under his belt here, I think he's going to have a better second season.
Well, they say that the biggest, growth comes between your first and second year in just about anything that you do. So if that's the case, and I was pretty happy with what he did his first year, then I think big things were in store. So let's just hope that he has enough weapons that, he can use that will make him, a better quarterback. You need a quarterback that, is somewhere in that, probably in the 10 to 20 range in terms of the ranking. You don't want one in the bottom third in the NFL. You're not going to have another one in the top third of the NFL for a while unless he becomes like an 8 to 10 year veteran. So if you can have somebody that's somewhere between 10 and 20, there's room to grow, and I think that's good enough. That's certainly adequate enough. It also puts an onus on the staff to make sure that the rest of the team is in good shape.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I like Mac. I think he's going to have a good season this year. But again, this is going to be another season where there's going to be players thrown in, and it's going to be interesting to see how they fit in with the whole scheme of things. Very similar to how last year was, because they brought a lot of new guys on last year to the team, and we didn't know which of those guys were really going to fit in with what the Patriots do. And it's going to be a lot of, mixing and matching from that standpoint again this year, just to kind of see who fits in where and see what they have, because the division is obviously still tough. Buffalo's, really good. I'm looking at Miami as well. I mean, this is going to be another tough year for the division, so it's going to be interesting to see where the Patriots fit into that this year.
Well, they'll. I mean, I don't think that the Jets have passed them, and you could certainly make an argument for Miami.
That's what I'm saying. I think Miami is going to be tougher this year.
Yeah, I think they will be. So I don't know. I'm not sold yet on the Patriots, being out of the mix, but you'd have to certainly favor Buffalo, and why not? So they've given you no reason to think that they'll be any less of what they were. I mean, they were phenomenal a year ago. Probably should have been in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. I mean,
that Chiefs-Bills game was fantastic. That was an unbelievable.
It was one of the best games that we've seen in a long time, bar none. Right?
It was unbelievable.
As good an NFL game has been played in probably years. So it was extraordinarily entertaining, and I'm sorry that they changed the overtime rules because of the result of that game, but invariably that's what ended up happening. And look, there's nothing wrong with the overtime rules, because frankly, to me, a championship caliber team has to be able to stop somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the whole thing too. And the
Bengals we didn't get the ball. Well, then stop them.
The Bengals did it the next week too. That was the whole thing too.
That's to me that's the whole everybody gets a trophy mentality.
Yeah,
that's bull. That's bull. Look, if the
Bengals did it, why couldn't the Bills do it the week before? That's what I look at it as.
Of course,
because the Bengals showed why those overtime rules do work.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had the option to be able to stop them, and they did, and that's just what it was.
Correct.
You don't look at the Bengals complaining about it because they did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, 100%. You're right there. Bengals were pretty good too. The Patriots' schedule this next year is not going to be as easy as people think it could be.
Going into Green Bay, that's tough. That's tough.
Well, you got to play 3 of your first 4 on the road. And then after the bye, you've got 3 or 4 on the road again, and the one home game you have is Buffalo. So I'm like, man, they can dig themselves a really deep hole if they're not careful.
Yeah, they play the Bengals at home. Bengals are going to be good again. I really was rooting for them last year. That was such a cool story, seeing them go to the Super Bowl last year. That's going to be tough. I mean, obviously, yeah, there's some tough games on here. I mean, the Raiders, it's going to be interesting to see how good they are this year. That entire division is going to be super good this year, I think, too, though.
Well, they're all trying to, play catch up to Kansas City.
All four of those teams, I think, are going to be good. Denver is going to be better this year, too. So that's going to be, that in general is going to be a fun division to watch this year. But yeah, I mean, going into Green Bay, that's going to be tough. I mean, that game against the Dolphins, obviously in Miami, is always tough for the Patriots. At least they're getting that one over with in week 1, which I do like about the schedule, because at least that's early on in the season, and it's not coming down to a must win in Miami situation later on in the season, just because we know that for some reason they always struggle to win there. So I do like that one's early on. But yeah, I mean, they literally the last game is in Buffalo of the regular season, so that's also not ideal. But it's I look at just the teams they're playing. There's some tough teams on there. Arizona, they're good. Sure. So this is going to be a tough schedule for the Patriots.
Be a good challenge for them. It'd be fun. I just hope they, don't, like I said, I hope they don't bury themselves early. That's all.
I know that's a little bit of what I'm concerned about too, because I'm looking at some of them, and it's, obviously the Dolphins are tough. Steelers is going to be interesting to see what kind of season they have this year. Ravens are good. Packers after that, and then they get the Lions at home. But those first 4 games are all going to be not easy games to me. I'm looking at. Any of those games, they are perfectly capable of losing, I think, or obviously capable of winning as well. But it's those 4 games could really set the tone for the season.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And it's always tough when you have to play the majority of those on the road. So, I look, it's great to sit here and speculate, and then we haven't even seen anybody put on pads yet. So, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of room to go. Part of the fun is the speculation, of course, because we can sit here and talk about it until we're all blue in the face. But, I think they've set themselves up in pretty good stead. The schedule is going to be what the schedule is. Nothing they can do about it. So you literally, this is why you hear the old adage, take it one at a time and see how you fare, and hopefully that it'll turn out for you. But, I think that, I mean, can they do as good as they did last year? I think they got a shot. That's
the whole question people have right now too.
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate question. I think there's a chance to win 9 or 10 again, and I think 9 or 10 is going to put you in the playoff mix again. So really, that's all you can ask for. And then next year, when free agency turns around and you have much, more opportunity and the salary cap increases, and hopefully you'll go out and do a little shopping like you did last year and see how you can build this thing up, because there's no way that, Bill's going to let this thing lag before he decides he wants to retire.
No.
And he needs, 2, 3 decent years, to pass Don Shula. And so I would tell you, how long is Bill going to stick around? Until he passes Don Shula. That's my answer. That's my answer, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, it's definitely a good theory, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is what it is for him. And I know when I've had people on the show before, they've definitely talked about just Bill's real passion for the game of football. Like, this is just what he does. I don't think he'll know what to do with himself when he retires, because everything is just football for him. So I feel like
he'll spend more time with Linda on Nantucket.
Yeah, it's just gonna be. It's gonna be definitely a weird day for the Patriots when that happens.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. But you know what? Life goes on, right? Somebody will pick up the mantle and run with it.
Yeah,
frankly, we're getting to the point in time where Robert Kraft won't. John
that's another one.
Know everything. Pretty soon. So it's just nobody knows, but it seems like we've set ourselves up, and the Patriots have set themselves up in pretty good shape here, based on what they've done with their track record. So, they're going to try to follow the template that they've kind of set forth, and they know what they're looking for. They know how to conduct business, and it's not like they're going to sell the team and somebody completely new is going to come in and take over and do things differently. That won't happen here. So there's a good chance for some real continuity. Real continuity, and that's what you want, and that's all you can ask for. The Patriots were so blessed to have, the 20-year dynastic run that they've had.
Yeah.
But there are some people that I know that don't think the dynasty's over yet.
I mean, it might not be. We'll find that out, I guess. But I mean,
Well, I
some
mean,
people thought the dynasty was over when Brady left.
well, a portion of it, sure, but dynasties don't end and reigns don't end just because a king is dead.
Yeah, exactly. I said just because Brady, who obviously was one of the biggest factors in that 20-year run, is gone. Yeah, it's different, but
Okay,
the
so
team as a whole might still win.
Go back through history. How did the Roman dynasty end? How did the Chinese dynasty end? War, poverty, pestilence,
Which is sad.
screw ups. Okay. They get too big for their britches, whatever it is. They go out and declare war and they get beat, right? Well, same thing happens with sports dynasties. People get, a big head and they think they go out and do this when they don't pay attention to detail and they don't follow the template that got them to where they were in the first place.
Yeah.
That's how I think it ends, if it ever does.
Yeah, that's such a good, interesting, open-ended question. What is there? What would be considered the end?
Yeah, there's not a wrong answer. There's
no clear-cut answer of like this is when the Patriots dynasty ends. This is how we define that.
Well, but you just hit the key word. It's redefined. A dynastic era can take a few years off and still be a dynasty. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, the Romans had a couple of down years, when, they were plagued by the Vikings or something. I don't know. I'm just, thinking off the top of my head, right? But it was still called the Roman dynasty. So, so the Patriots don't win a Super Bowl for another 2 or 3 years, right? I mean, how many years did they go between, let's see, 2004 and 2014?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's 10 years there.
And people...
There's 10 years there, all right? They went 10 years between championships, and we're still calling it a 20-year dynasty. Come on now.
Yeah. No, it's so true.
And how many years has it been since they won one? 4?
4, yeah, 2018. So
we have 6 more years to go, kid. It's kind of how I look at it.
I don't like that, though. I don't like that.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is so true. It's so true. Yeah, no, it should be, I think, regardless of what happens, the Patriots are the Patriots, and it's other teams know that you always have to incorporate the Patriots in that because of their coaching and just what they have going for them in the program. So on paper, the Patriots team might not look that good, but when you have Bill Belichick present, you can never really completely rule out the Patriots. And I think that's what a cool part about being a Patriots fan is other fan bases know you always have to keep an eye on what the Patriots are doing.
Correct. You are correct.
Regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah. So that's what I love about the Patriots and just being a fan of this team is people know, no matter what the Patriots look like on paper, you could never rule them out. You just can't.
Nope, nor should you, because when you do, that's when you'll end up screwing up and getting beat by them.
Yep, it's so true. It's so true. But it should be. I'm excited for the season. I mean, I need my summer first though, so I don't want to rush through the summer to get to football season because I need to enjoy it.
As we began this conversation, we end this conversation with summer and getting to the beach and enjoying some cold beverages and yeah. So.
Exactly. I need to get all of that first.
Yeah.
Then when we're getting towards the end of the summer, that's when I'll
say. Then we're ready for the fall. Yeah. I gotta get the summer out of my blood first. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, exactly. But it should be definitely interesting. I think the schedule is obviously tough, but there's games in there. I think they definitely could win. I think they could finish around where they did last year. Maybe a game or two. It really depends. It's so hard to know again because we don't know how the Patriots are going to look going into the season, but people can speculate based on what their schedule looks like. But overall, it's the Patriots. I trust what they're doing. Just trust the process, as they say, and we'll see what happens.
You're right. I mean, that's what we should do. In the meantime, we can have fun and we can speculate, and it's good discussion, and we consider certain points and maybe follow up on a few here and there. And we see how the summer plays out, but. You're right. You have to have a little bit of faith in the program, and see how they handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. Well, I really appreciate you hopping on the show with me. This was great. Definitely. I learned a lot from you, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Of course, my pleasure to join you. Thanks, and listen. Good luck with the show, and I hope you're able to get some of that beach time this summer.
Thank
Maybe
you. Yeah.
maybe
US
I'll see you down in Key West one of these days.
I was gonna say maybe I'll be booking flights to Key West soon after this now.
You won't regret it.
But yeah, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Everybody else as well. Hope you have a great weekend. I know it's supposed to be super hot, so try to stay hydrated, stay
Yeah.
stay cool, and I will catch you all next time. Have a great one, everyone.